Hi, my name's Dino from FFTV, The High Press, and today I'm interviewing Jacob Tanswell. He is a journalist for The Athletic. He's also a Southampton fan. He's previously spent 3 years writing on South Coast football, working as a sports journalist for Reach PLC. And in 2021, he was awarded the Football Writers Association Student Football Writer of the Year.
Thank you very much for having me.
And congratulations on the award. Do you want to sort of elaborate on what happened with your award and how you got that?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful to say, actually. It happened. It feels like it happened, quite a long time ago. It was, I just out of nowhere, really. I think there was 600 nominations. Someone put me forward for it, and I managed to get into the top 10, and then somehow win it. Unfortunately, it was COVID, so I couldn't get presented with the award. But yeah, it's always good to have on the CV, and it's given me a springboard, really.
We got the award now, though.
I have indeed, yes.
Brilliant. Okay. For the people watching this, we're going to go through a day in the life of Jacob, what he gets involved in, because not many of us sort of work around the press environment, so we don't really know what goes on and how hectic it is. But first of all, we're going to cover the upcoming game, get away at Southampton for Forest. Both of us are really struggling down there. So how long have you actually been a suffering Southampton supporter?
Over 2 decades now. It's been difficult. I think you guys know as well how when you're in the Championship and you're fighting to get out of it, it's difficult. But luckily for Southampton, that they were only in the Championship for one season when they got promoted from League One. So Championship football didn't quite have the same toil. But then, Premier League is just constant ups and downs, and Southampton aren't your typical mid to lower table team. They're not that very consistent. They go on peaks and troughs. They lose 6 in a row, and then they win 4 of the next 6, and that kind of guarantees them survival. And most of the time, they lose. So they're completely streaky, and it's just really difficult to judge if you're a supporter, if you're a journalist, even if you're a manager. You don't really know or can't gauge how good they actually are.
You've been kicking around the Premier League for about 18 seasons in total, haven't you? I know you had a relegation in 2011-12.
You
came back up then, didn't you?
Yeah, I think there were 6 years. They got relegated in 2005, and then they came back eventually in 2011. So
yeah. So how do you see your chances of staying up this year?
I think they're probably the lowest they've been since Southampton returned to getting to the Premier League. There's a lot of issues at Southampton. I think you've always had something to point to, some sort of optimism going into the new year. I think Ralph Hasenhüttl had done an incredible job of keeping Southampton up, because everyone knew they didn't have any finances, they didn't have any resources to invest, especially with the rest of the Premier League. But he was such a vibrant leader. He could win games by himself, and everyone had that. The issue was towards the end, Hasenhüttl just ran out of energy, ran out of ideas, and the change had to be made. And unfortunately for Southampton, at the moment, there's no new manager bounce. And that's the most worrying thing heading into the new year. There's a real lack of goals in the team. I think Shea Adams is the only goal scorer they've got. They're in desperate need for a striker. They've kept one clean sheet all season. So they've got the most chronic and worst issue in football. They can't defend, then they can't score. So that's probably the reason why Southampton fans are so downtrodden at the moment.
So you just mentioned there the new manager bounce. What do the fans? I mean, this is a question from FFTV Simon.
Yeah.
What do the fans think about Nathan Jones, and is the right appointment? Do you think he'll be backed in the January transfer window? Do you think he'll even be there?
Yeah, I don't think Southampton will have unlimited funds. They've never spent outside their means. They're very cautious of their spending, even if they are in such a desperate situation. They do want some players in. They want a centre back. They want a striker. They want to strengthen the core of the pitch, really. But the thing about Nathan Jones is that supporters were never enamoured by him. When Ralph Hasenhüttl came in, he had just been at RB Leipzig. Bayern Munich had liked him 3 months before that. He had a reputation. People were excited by it, and he'd come in with this vibrant personality, high pressing style, and it was exciting to watch. We're hiring a manager from Luton who got sacked by Stoke after 10 months. You can understand why fans weren't particularly happy. But I do think people gave him the benefit of the doubt. I remember speaking to Southampton's owners who explained it really well in terms of why they appointed him, and I think fans were willing to give him time. But the issue is he's had 3 games now, including a cup game against Lincoln, and considering he had pre-season, a pre-season during the World Cup break, there's been no sort of identity or no way of playing. I think even if you go back to Arsenal's first game, there was that clear press. It was so obvious to see, and it captivated fans. Where now with Nathan Jones, it just seems like it's very pragmatic, back five, long ball all the time, and that's not how supporters want him to play.
So you're not known as a long ball club, really, are you? And I think over the years I've seen Southampton as a kind of selling club.
Yeah,
you have to sell your best players to sort of, whether it's balancing the books, I don't know. So you're not a fan of his play style.
I can understand the reasons why Southampton have wanted to do it, because they haven't got the players at the moment that are technically good enough to play through the lines or do what Man City try to do. The team is kind of geared towards a high pressing style, and the Arsenal's most of its style was what a player could do out of possession. They turned down Michael Elise, Eberechi Eze, because they weren't good enough pressers. So you kind of get an idea of what Southampton tried to do back then. And right now, Jones has come in with a team that aren't very good on the ball, but they are quite aggressive. So he's trying to build a team in that way to suit them and to get short term results. But it's not the easiest on the eye, and especially when you lose games, there's no payback, is there? There's no payoff, because supporters can't say, yeah, that was terrible to watch, but at least they got the 3 points, or at least they got a good draw.
I'd say you're not scoring many either.
No, they're not scoring many. I think Shea Adams, Southampton wanted to sell him in the summer, but they failed to get a striker in. Of course, everyone knows about how close they were to signing Cody Gakpo and Gonzalo Ramos, and if one of those two came off, then maybe Southampton would have been in this position, but yeah, I think apart from Shea Adams, they've got Adam Armstrong, who scored 2 goals in 70-odd appearances. Siku Maru came in, he's only 20, he's not scored yet. And Theo Walcott, who's injured. So, the striking options are undoubtedly the worst in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, we've got 2 strikers, but we tend to not play them as a striker. We tend to play them out of position. We tend to go for this false 9, so 3 along the front. And I don't know if you caught the Chelsea game yesterday, but first half, that was a typical Forest where we just sit back and we don't press. And then the second half, we come out and press. And I think it drives the Forest fans crazy when we don't press, because when we press, we look a completely different side. So understand. And I think fans like to see the press, don't they? We like to see putting the bigger clubs under pressure. So what's your opinion with the game coming up on Wednesday? How do you fancy your chances? I mean, we're both down there. We're both desperate for the points.
I think Southampton have to win that game. I think Nathan Jones has to win that game. It's huge. Fulham and Brighton were massive games. Southampton lost both of them. This is just on a completely different scale. If Southampton don't win this, I think staying up is going to be very, very difficult. And the pressure is... I think the pressure on Southampton is the biggest it's been in a number of years. This game is their biggest, I think. Forest are down there. Everyone says a typical Forest descriptions. They've spent a lot of money. They've got a lot of players, etc., etc., and I don't think they've been very good from what I've seen most of this season, apart from against Chelsea, that second half, like you say, I thought they were really good. And I know Southampton were big admirers of Steve Cooper for a long, long time. And I think there's a few of them inside the club that wanted him to replace Hasenhuttl. So I think there's a lot of admiration for Steve Cooper. But yeah, he's not done too well this season, but neither has Southampton. So I think this is a must win.
I think the saving grace for both teams is that there are a lot of bad clubs that, up to, I think, 10th, any one of them could go down quite easily and be dragged into the mire within a couple of games. I'm looking at your next fixtures. You've got, after Forest, you've got Palace away, Manchester City at home, interesting, Everton, Villa, Brentford and Wolves. And I think your running is very, very similar to ours. I mean, we've got, after you guys, we've got Wolves at home, Bournemouth away, Blackpool in the Cup, Leicester at home and Leeds at home. So, they're all, I mean, with respect to all those clubs, if you're going to stay up, we both need to be kind of getting points from those games, haven't we?
Exactly.
They're all pretty much down there other than yourself with Man City.
Exactly. But it's interesting that the Palace and City games are both cup games. So I think Southampton will probably take that out of the equation. I think if you take them 2 away, you've got, you've got Forest now, then you've got Brentford and you've got Everton. These are games with teams in and around you. And who knows, we might be sat here in 2 weeks' time. Southampton's won 2 of the 3 games and they might be 15th in the table or 14th and they look in a lot better position. So these run of games is key. I think that's one of the reasons why Hasenhuttl left in the World Cup break, because the board looked at these next 5-6 run games and they knew this is the opportunity. This is the window of opportunity to acquire the points to keep them up. They've lost the first two, which is hardly an ideal start, but they can turn this around. So that's one of the positives I think they're taking from it.
So if there's one player you'd take out the Forest team, who would it be?
I'd take a number of them, to be fair. I'd probably go for someone fairly functional. I think I like Yates. I think he's good. I think he would suit Southampton's system in terms of working hard, diligent, win second balls, good engine on him. I know Southampton were big admirers of Emmanuel Dennis at the time. I'm not sure I'd take him now, although Southampton's options up front are quite scant. But I'd go for Yates.
Yates is, I mean, I can't speak for all fans because we've obviously got all different opinions, but I think, looking at our chat a lot of time, Yates got our player of the year last year, but that's obviously over the end of the Championship season and the beginning of the Premier League season. And he's kind of, been there a long time. He's a Forest boy through and through. I think the other ones for us at Aurier, he's been playing really well for a free. That was a really cracking signing. MGW, and we've got, fortunately, do you know anything about Scarpa?
No,
Gustavo Scarpa.
No, I haven't seen much of him.
Okay, well, I'll leave that one, and I'll surprise you on Wednesday with that one, hopefully. Or we'll surprise you.
Ominous.
On Wednesday with that. Yes, ominous. Ominous. Okay, so do your research on him because he might worry you. So I think from our point of view, I think it's obvious who we take. Ward-Prowse, please. So if you just want to send him our way, that's fine. Before we sort of go on to Jacob's day in the life of and what he gets involved with, just remember to follow Forest Fans TV. I'll put the link down below. It's a link tree, so we're filling up. We're trying to fill up most of the channels so you can get content from anywhere, however you like it. We've even got a Spotify Grumpy Old Reg channel, so if you want to listen to something in the car, we've got something for everyone. This part of it, FFTV, the High Press. We've got a Twitter account, FFTV High Press, which again, it's in the link tree. This covers like transfer news, things like that, and also interviews like this. We're going to be doing more and more of this going forward. So let's talk about a day in the life of you. How crazy is it? Where does it start? Where does it end? Does it ever end? Are you working all day? Are you constantly on social media picking up content? How does it work? Because, I don't know. I work with journalists in my business, but I don't know what your day's like.
Do you know, it's very weird. A lot of people ask me, is it a 9 to 5? And I can't really explain it. It's just very all-consuming. I think there's times where you wake up in the morning, you've got a very clear idea of what you want to do. You think, I've got to write this, I've got to file this by a certain time. I'm going to look at this today. Where that might be tactical analysis, that might be a piece on a long-term feature piece that you're working on for mid-March, April, and that is only if it's a quiet day, so there's nothing happening immediately. But then you have messages on WhatsApp, you have calls, and all of a sudden your day goes from fairly serene and fairly calm, thinking that you'll finish at 5, to thinking you're going to be working till 8 and 9 at night. And there's always something going on at Southampton at the moment, especially. So it's difficult to say. Sometimes during the day there's nothing really to do because you've got everything ready to go. You might do a little bit of planning ahead, but nothing's urgent. And then all of a sudden you get a whisper of something and you've got to go chasing for it, and it might take hours, might take days, but you're working full speed really. In terms of social media, obviously Twitter and other social media platforms are key to establish contacts and media, to gauge fan opinion. But I think if you go on Twitter all day, it kind of becomes a little bit toxic. It becomes all consuming and you get sucked into it. So you do have to have some respite at some points. But a lot of the time you are going around meeting people, meeting contacts, building relationships, and getting the information that that fans want. So it's not necessary to do a transfer, for example. It could be if I'm doing a piece on how Southampton are playing out from the back. This is not just going to be my personal opinion. I might have to speak from someone inside the club to gauge that and gauge the intricacies and the nuances of why they're playing out from the back. So there's a lot of detail you're always having to find, and you can never rest easy at a Premier League club who sell, who buy, and there's a lot of changes throughout the infrastructure.
Yeah. How many pieces do you have to write per week, per month?
So usually it's around three a week. Obviously that changes, every week really, depending if there's transfers, if there's breaking stories. But yeah, it's usually 3 a week in terms of having a match piece and 2 big ideas. And these ideas will take, days, weeks to work on at points. You can't.
Do you come up with the ideas, or is it like a team?
Yeah, so I will put forward my ideas. Obviously, it's got to get okayed by my editor. We all have editors, separate editors, and then we go for it. And the editors do a great job in terms of helping you, giving you the tools. Whether that's through stats, through contacts, through numbers. They basically are there to guide you and to help you with anything you need. But a lot of the time, it is the writers' ideas that that are suggested and put forward.
So how difficult is it to get into the club, to get any... I think Forest are traditionally difficult to get into unless you're in that inner circle. Are you in the inner circle? Is it easy to get comments from the club and interviews, or...?
I don't think any journalist is ever really in the inner circle. I think if you're in the inner circle, you'd really be doing your job, because if you're in the inner circle, I think it suggests that you've got quite a cozy relationship and you're not going to, challenge these people. I think it's really important that you do. I think you obviously want to build relationships, but you've also got to understand at the same time that you can't just be a yes man or a spokesman for the club. So in terms of building relationships, you don't want to be one of those journalists that are purely clickbait, that are just doing it for headlines. You want to do it to inform the reader, and that's what we do at The Athletic. That's the most important thing. So I'm not going to go in and shake up something and put a story out there because it will do great hits. If I wanted to do that, it's quite straightforward to do. We'll get a lot more reads and a lot more subscribers, sadly, but this is not what our reputation is about. A reputation about well-informed opinion and news, really. So I think as long as the clubs understand that, and when I do speak to anyone at the club or I go to them for official comment, they understand I'm not trying to mug them off, so to speak. I'm doing it for the greater good and to help not only me but the club at times, also supporters, to know what's going on. So they're the most important things. But the contacts inside the club don't necessarily come from staff all the time. They can come from players, they can come from agents, but that's at The Athletic, which is different to anyone else. I think if we put a story out there, it has to be double, triple sourced. We're not going to rely on one voice, because of course they've got different motives, haven't they?
Interesting.
Yeah. So every story you read at The Athletic is double, triple sourced. It's never from one person or hearsay.
Who's the most favourite person you've interviewed, and why?
Do you know what? I'd probably say Shay Adams. I went round to his house to interview him, and he was just genuinely lovely guy. You can build up a perception of a footballer and what they're like around their house, lavish and they're arrogant, but he was really down to earth. He was really keen to get the right shots of him and pictures. He was really keen for us to feel comfortable, and it was just a really different type of setting. It wasn't in a club. It wasn't with a club official staring over you or checking what questions you can and kind of ask. It's really laid back, and he was excellent. But there's been a lot. I interviewed the Southampton's owners in their first ever interview 2 months ago, and in London, and that was really refreshing. I thought they were very transparent, and at a time where Southampton was so difficult, I really appreciated it.
What was his house like, by the way, Shay Adams?
Very, very nice, I must say. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Opposite to that, who's been? You might not answer this, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Who's been the most difficult or intimidating?
Do you know what? I think when you're younger, I think every interview is intimidating, because you're thinking, wow, these are big people. These are huge, giants of football, people you've grown up watching. I think the more you interview people, the more you're not intimidated by anybody. There is one player, I won't name him, at another club who I interviewed, and I thought I'd get something good out of him, and he just gave me 3-word answers at a time, and he really just wasn't interested. And in the end, I didn't even bother using any of the interviews. I just used some of what he said as information for a future piece, which had nothing to do with him, really. So that was quite a letdown. There was one as well where I turned up to an interview, and the guy or the footballer completely forgot, because he decided to take his dog to the vets for a checkup. So I was there for 3 hours, and no one had decided to let me know that he was not going to be there. So that wasn't ideal either.
Okay, so who's your ideal person that you'd like to interview?
Ideally, it would probably be Romeo Lavia at Southampton, purely because I don't know how long he'll still be at Southampton for, and I think he's going to be a star of the future, whether that's back at Man City or another Premier League club. Right,
onto the nitty-gritty, my friend. Score predictions.
I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Southampton. I think I've always said Southampton will win 2-1 against every single team apart from Man City this season. So, yeah.
But you've not scored 2 for a long time, have you?
Oh, no, but I always feel like eventually Southampton will score 2 and eventually they will win. So if I keep saying it, then eventually it will come true.
Yeah, can't you save that for another game?
They probably will.
Yeah, I'll take if you know what, if we play like we did the second half against Chelsea, we will batter you.
Oh, really? You're that confident?
Yeah, I'll take 2-0, but you can't trust that to happen. So I'll take a 1-0 for Forest.
I think either of those 2 results is going to be an absolute nightmare for Southampton and their supporters.
Yeah,
I think
it's a nightmare for both of us losing.
I think it'd be really interesting to see the atmosphere in the stadium if one of the teams go behind.
Yeah, I mean, what's your atmosphere like? Is it fairly toxic or is it still very supportive? I mean, the Forest fans are just incredible.
Yeah.
You know, we can be getting battered and we'll be singing all day long.
Yeah, Southampton's not quite like that. There's a lot of unrest at the moment.
Right.
I do feel, it doesn't have that every time Southampton play at home almost. It feels like they concede an early goal. So immediately the support and atmosphere is on the back foot. But yeah, it's not the warmest place to be at the moment.
Right. Good. Wait till you hear Forest away support. They're amazing. Final questions. Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi.
Same. FA Cup winners or 17th? I put top 4 before, but I've changed it. 17th or FA Cup winners?
FA Cup winners. You're in football.
Really?
You're in football to win trophies. It's fun. 17th. Does nothing really.
Yeah, but you've been in that division for 18 years, 1.5. It took 23 years for Forest to get back. So personally, I would take 17th place.
Yeah, maybe
I don't know about the rest of the Forest support, but favourite food?
Pizza.
Favourite drink?
Coke.
Diet or full fat?
Has to be full fat.
Oh, come on, man. We're just so opposition rivals. My goodness me. Best away ground you've ever visited?
Oh, Luton.
Luton?
I loved Luton.
Really?
It's just so weird, isn't it? It's just such a quirky stadium.
Yeah, it's a quirky stadium.
You get lost, even though you're basically at the stadium. You just get lost in all the houses.
Yeah. Best away fans?
Do you know what? I know it's quite an obvious one, but I'd probably say Manchester United.
Man United. It can be toxic though.
Yeah.
Away from football, final question. What do you do? What brings you happiness? When you're not doing your journo stuff, what are you doing?
I like to go to the cinema a lot. I like to just try and de-stress and take my mind off it. I do try and go out every evening. I don't mean bud to the pub, but just doing an activity or whatever just to escape really. Otherwise, if I stay at home, I'll just be working all the time.
When you get to cinema on a 3-hour movie, isn't your phone pinging?
Do you know what? I do have a temptation just to check every now and again, see if there's anything going on. But usually in the winter, I try and stay away. I'm sure if I go to cinema this month, I'll have my phone on, but just don't tell the cinema.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Well, thanks, Jacob. You've been an amazing guest. I really appreciate it. If you want to sort of mention again about the Athletic and how people can join, because it's a bit of a subscription thing, isn't it?
Yeah, at the moment there's a big deal going on actually though for the next week or so. I think it's £1 a month for 12 months, which is I know I'm biased, but I think that's quite outstanding really for everything you get, especially if we're looking at Forest, especially what they do as well. It's unparalleled really and unrivaled. So £1 a month and you get everything, all podcasts, all articles, all information coming out of it.
It's an amazing news source for football, definitely. And have you got a personal channel that you want people to follow you on? We've got quite a few guys that actually support other people that come onto our channel.
So it's J_Tanswell. I look forward to seeing some Forest fans fill my Twitter if they lose, hopefully, or if they win as well. I would love to hear their opinions on how Southampton played.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks a lot for joining us. And that's all from FFTV, The High Press. Thank you, Jacob.
Thank you.